why do people cheat? I mean, here's the real psychology behind the infidelity. It probably goes against what many of you think, myself included, but, we took the time to do the research. So listen to this. This is very, very informative because, if you could find out why someone cheats, it'll help you better understand the situation. I'm not condoning it or anything else like that, but we all want to know, like, why would someone do that? Seemingly happy, beautiful family, everything seems great, but then they cheat. And so oftentimes you hear that, I just never expected him or her to do that, but they do. So when you listen to these, and these are four points of which lead to cheating, or the psychology behind cheating. And of course, we all want to find out the truth. That's for things. That's a different topic altogether, but there are definitely ways to find out the truth. If you think you're being cheated on, there are certainly ways to find that out. But now, okay, so number one is validation and attention. Many people assume cheating is about sex, but often it's about validation. I mean, many men might argue, or many people may think that men only cheat for sex, but no, compartmentalized within the desire for sex is also validation. This might be a guy who doesn't feel appreciated from his wife. It could be a wife who doesn't feel appreciated from her husband. I'm not talking about any specific gender here. I'm talking about just overall psychology. So anyway, it's about validation. Some individuals crave attention, admiration, and reassurance from others. When they feel unappreciated, as I just said, insecure or disconnected, that's the big one. They may seek validation outside their relationship. Now, I've seen this before. I've heard this before, especially when it comes to women and it comes to connection. They crave that emotional connection. They have to have it in order to feel like, being intimate, like to experience real intimacy, which can only be experienced when you feel vulnerable. And that can only be experienced once you have trust for the other person. And that all is encompassed within the connection that two people experience. Myself and many other men, I'm sure we also feel that connection, fading, and that might lead us to do something like that. But moreover, women, it's the connection. For men, probably appreciation, even the insecurity. I remember one time here a long time ago, and this is true. One man will never be enough for a woman with low self-esteem. And conversely, that's also true about men. One woman will never be enough for a man with low self-esteem. That's the truth, because you need the constant validation, constant. No matter how much love and compassion and validation you give them, they're still going to seek it elsewhere. You might be able to, satisfy that need temporarily, but ultimately they will begin looking elsewhere simply because they have such a high level of insecurity. They don't feel good about themselves, and they always need that constant validation. So be careful of that. If you choose a partner, or when it does come time to choose a partner, make sure that this person is physically, emotionally, and spiritually strong, grounded, comes from a good family. That's not always an indicator of cheating. However, it does help. So these are things that you need to consider when choosing a partner, because if you choose a partner with low self-worth, low self-esteem, constantly insecure, I'm not going to say jealous, because I think jealousy is not quite within that realm. But yeah, these things are a pretty good indicator toward cheating. When you have a person who suffers from these things, they are far more likely to cheat than someone who doesn't. Now, number two is the opportunity creates temptation. This mainly has to do with men. I'm not saying all women are exempt from this, but this is mainly men. Just take into consideration that movie, Fatal Attraction. He has a great family. And for those of you who might be, young enough, too young, Fatal Attraction is a movie that was made in 1989 with Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. It's a very good movie. You should check it out. Anyway, so he just cheats because he has the opportunity, which is really stupid. Every time I see that movie, I think to myself, what the heck is this guy thinking? He's a beautiful wife, daughter, house, great job. He's got the perfect life on the outside. But on the inside, he just has an opportunity, so he took advantage of it. So not everybody who has the opportunity to cheat will do so, but increased access to private communication through smartphones, social media, and messaging apps has made temptation more accessible than ever before. Now, this goes back to point one. If you're the type of person with low self esteem, insecurity, feeling lack of connection, and you need that validation, now all of a sudden you have social media to turn to. All you have to do is pick up your phone. That's instant validation. All it takes is one innocent conversation to begin, which then does not become innocent. It becomes insidious. It keeps getting worse and worse and more and more. And you think you have it under control. But before you know it, it's out of control. And, so these things, the technology and opportunity doesn't cause cheating, but they can make it easier for someone who already is vulnerable to the temptation. And as I said, that reverts to number one. So social media and dating apps and just your phone in general. Oh my gosh, I can't. We get callers in here, and I really cannot count the number of callers who said that their partner's affair started with just a simple hello on Facebook. Someone reaches out to someone else from their past, you never know. Now maybe you get into an argument with your partner one day, and all of a sudden this person shows up on the right day. I mean, that's all it takes. I remember I was dating this girl once, and our thing was we don't have friends of the opposite sex. It's just something that I like, and this woman also liked, and this guy was communicating with her, reaching out to her on TikTok DM. She didn't reply to him until one day we had an argument, and then she did. That created a big problem, because again, had it not been for social media and her phone, maybe that guy would not have reached out to her. Therefore, that temptation would not have been there. So that's just a small example of what I'm talking about here. Just one inopportune moment is all it takes. So number three now is our emotional affairs. And they often come first, and they are by far the most dangerous. Physical affairs, one thing, but when you combine the physical aspect along with the emotional, now you have something powerful. That's not just an affair anymore. That's like a mini relationship that really does permeate every part of your life and changes it in a very profound way that you can't possibly imagine until you're actually in it and feeling it. For that, I would say watch that movie Unfaithful, because she starts out all happy and everything. She's another one in a great marriage. This is with Diane Lane and Richard Gere. She's in a great marriage, and she just happens to bump into this guy in a windy day down in Soho. And, the books fall all over the curb, all over the sidewalk, and she's upstairs, and there's just something about it. And then she goes home, and then the next day or the couple of days later, she follows up with it. Before you know it, it has her in its grips. She's miserable. She's always crying. She's unstable. And it just, it's crazy. And that's what happens when the emotions get involved. So many affairs don't start in the bedroom. They start through conversations. Always remember that, folks. A simple conversation, just a simple hello, is enough to get it started. A person may begin sharing personal thoughts, frustrations, and emotions with someone outside their relationship, which is a big no-no. You should never, ever be discussing your relationship with a member of the opposite sex, unless, of course, that member of the opposite sex is maybe part of your family or a blood relative. Other than that, that's it. Hands off. Don't fucking do it. Okay? It's going to go nowhere. It's going to just end up in trouble. So frustrations and emotions with someone outside the relationship, over time, emotional intimacy can develop into something much deeper. Now, of course, I'm reading my notes here because I want to make sure that I convey all this information to you accurately. And number three is something I believe very, very strongly in. When I was single, even when I was married, toward the end of my relationship, I remember opening the door to these types of conversations. And of course, they led someplace. My marriage was already on the outs, and, we were just about, one step away from getting divorced anyway. So yeah, and then I started having conversations with this one and that one. Before you know it, yeah, they develop into something. Not every single time, but you begin to realize just how these things happen. I had a friend who used to go to the Starbucks with me. His name, I forget, long time ago. Anyway, he was an older guy, and he would just, sit there and prey on just about every woman who walked in the place. And his strategy was simple. Give them a compliment and just plant that seed. And then the next day, have another small conversation with them. I'm not going to say it worked every single time, but it worked a lot. I remember one time, his name is Nick, that's right. So I remember one time he walked over to a woman he saw online and says, "Oh, I just want to let you know you look very pretty today. I see you come in here every day, blah, blah, blah." And he walked back to the table where I was sitting along with maybe 2 or 3 other people. And he said, "You see, I planted the seed. Next time she comes in, she's going to be all smiles and it'll be a lot easier." So these are the things that people strategize with as well. You think this guy or girl is just being innocent, but no, in many, many cases, they're not. So these things, these full-blown affairs, they don't start out in bed. They start out with a simple hello, a simple, polite smile. It's like, I hate to use this analogy, but nobody ever starts out as a heroin addict. I think the overwhelming majority, if not every single one, always starts out with what they call a gateway drug, whatever that may be. And then it ultimately leads to heroin. And unfortunately, bad analogy or not, that's how these relationships go. You start out, oh, it's no big deal. He just said hello, or she just said hello. He's just a friend, just somebody I work with. Before you know it, it's out of control. That's why you have to pick and choose these things very, very carefully. And in my relationship, in my marriage now, so you're married, again, it's just one thing that we both agree upon. No friends of the opposite sex. There's nothing wrong with saying hello to somebody in a polite, casual manner. If we see somebody at the gym or out, "Hi, how you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. But we both know, both my wife and I know, we've discussed this many, many times, to try to sense if somebody is coming on to you or maybe speaking to you in a way that doesn't feel friendly. Maybe it feels like they want something a little bit more. Now, granted, I'm not always going to be around, and she isn't either. So it becomes incumbent on the two of us to make sure we maintain that protection of our relationship. And again, there's nothing wrong with saying hello, how are you, how's the family, how's the kids, but that's it. You leave it there. Anything farther than that, you're asking for trouble. Now, this is an understanding both my wife and I have. We both adhere to it. It's one that I agree with, the old-fashioned relationship values. So I know I'm going to get a lot of crap for this one, but that's just the way we look at it. So number 5, the thrill of secrecy. There's something exciting about it. Your life has gotten boring. Maybe you and your wife or husband do the same thing. Maybe you have one of those husbands who never takes care of you. Maybe he's only interested in himself, leaving you to finish yourself. Did you know this? That upwards of 65% of women have to finish themselves. Now that's a crime. It really is, because men should pay more attention to their wives in the bedroom, and not only when they want sex. Men, listen up. Women love attention. To them, attention is currency, just like dollars are to you and I. And the more attention you give them, the more, we'll say, pleasant they will be. If they feel loved, honored, cherished, respected, and just like they're the most beautiful woman in the world, you will get a lot more out of that woman than you will if you tell her she looks like shit and tell her to shut up and treat her like shit. Because I remember some guys told me, like, you treat a woman like shit, she'll never leave you. Yeah, no, that's not true, because any self-respecting woman or man will leave after a certain amount of bullshit. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that. But, taking care of your wife and your husband, having reciprocity within the relationship is really, really, really important. And I hear a lot from women how they say, my husband only touches me when he wants sex. And then when he wants sex, it's not even good anyway, because, he doesn't take care of me. Guys, man, listen to this and listen carefully, okay? The ratio is 3-to-1. 3-to-1 minimum. 3 orgasms to your 1 every fucking day. Don't come unless she does first, period. Granted, there are going to be days where maybe neither one of you can, but I'm telling you, 3-to-1. If you get the ratio to 3-to-1, I guarantee you'll have a better partner. Unless, of course, she's just an unconscionable bitch, then fucking dump her and get somebody who isn't like that. But I'm telling you, remember that, guys. 3-to-1. You'll thank me later, okay? So anyway, the thrill of secrecy. For certain individuals, the excitement comes from the risk itself. Just, your adrenaline's going. You're going to meet her or him, and, you're seeing them, and you're together for 3 hours, so you got to make it the best it could possibly be. And the secrecy, the hidden communication, and the fear of getting caught can create the adrenaline rush that becomes addictive. And this is the addictive nature of the relationships of those affairs, because they really do become addictive. If you don't believe me, just watch those movies. I know they're movies, but it's the truth. Those things are based in reality. That's what really happens. People who are involved in those affairs become miserable after a period of time. Probably more so women because they have a tendency to get more emotionally involved than men. But yeah, it starts out all fun and games and quickly turns to just an uncontrollable addiction where you go there, you say, okay, yeah, and everything's great while you're doing it. You do your business, you're done, you leave, you're like, what the fuck did I just do? That was terrible. I'm never doing that again. That's it. I want out. Okay, so you feel good for like a day or two, maybe three. At the end of 3, 4, 5 days, you're like, oh man, I really missed them. Holy shit. Call up, I miss you, blah, blah, blah. And here you go. It starts all over again. It's a sickness. It's an addiction. And that's the best way to describe it. So some people become attached to the excitement, the novelty of the secret relationship rather than the person involved. They just want to do something exciting. I'm not so sure about that. I'd rather do other things that are exciting, like maybe ride a motorcycle or do bungee jumping, but stuff like that. So anyway, number 6, guilt, justification, and rationalization. One of the most fascinating aspects of infidelity is how people justify their actions. Yeah, I've seen and heard this a lot. You made me do it. You haven't been paying attention to me for years. You said this. You did that. That made me cheat. People, that's a bunch of bullshit. Nothing you're going to do is going to make somebody else cheat. They're just blaming their actions on you. That's a bunch of bullshit. Don't ever believe somebody when they say, oh, well, I did this because you did that, or I did this because you said that. No, there's nothing in your world that's going to be powerful enough to force someone else to do something. They did this of their own free will. You did something, they reacted to it. Their reaction is their responsibility, not yours. So don't ever allow somebody to put this bullshit on you that, oh, I did this because of you. You made me do it. You made me say this. That's the biggest bunch of bullshit in the world. That's lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, and you'll never be able to get through to a person like that. So just fucking leave them. I'm not kidding either. You can't have a relationship with someone like that. My grandmother used to say, it's easy to point the finger, and it is, and I see a lot of people doing it because they just don't want to admit that they're wrong, or their brain just doesn't allow them to see the situation for what it really is. They have to blame someone else, and that's just the way it goes. So again, they do this, to justify their actions. Common explanations include feeling neglected, like what I just said, believing the relationship was already failing, or convincing themselves that no one will get hurt if they keep it hidden. Yeah, I laugh because, this is exactly what we've heard on the show. I've had people call in and say, I never thought it would get to what it got. I never thought anyone would get hurt. I thought I can continue doing it and it would remain a secret. I could end it when I wanted to and just move on like nothing ever happened. But you know what? In most cases, that's a pipe dream. That is not going to happen. More than not, people get caught. Always. Probably 98% of the time, people get caught. And why? Because the more you do it, the sloppier you're going to get. Your spouse, your partner, is going to pick up on your new patterns, your behavior, and they're going to get curious. They are going to investigate. And when they do, it's only a matter of time until they get to the point where they put together all the pieces of the puzzle. And at that point, the jig is up. So many cheaters create personal justifications that allow them to continue their behavior they would normally consider wrong. And, unfortunately, this is like hindsight is 20/20. You think that cheating or getting a side piece is going to make you happy. It will for a very short period of time. And you quickly realize, like, no. I think I've spoken to so many people who have been in affairs. And the number one thing they say after everything is all said and done, after the smoke clears and all the damage has been done, the one thing they say more than anything is like, I would never do that again. It wasn't worth it. And I agree with that. I've never cheated, but I can definitely understand why someone would say that, because it would be so devastating. And I think people don't realize until they actually see the devastation in their family members and the destruction that it causes. And yeah, the amount of guilt they feel afterwards is just overwhelming. And that's where they come out with, my God, what was I thinking? I would never do that again.